What's up, YouTube? Thought of the day number 6. Not moving for once, so it's going to be nice to just be able to sit here on the balcony on this warm afternoon and record that video. So I had a question in French, and I thought it might be worth tackling in English as well, which is, can one extract or interpret or see ventilatory thresholds with a VO2 master unit, given that there is no CO2 measurement available currently? So I was going to answer that question. I did answer that question in French, and again, I wanted to answer it in English. Interested to hear your point of view if you possess a VO2 master or possess another metabolic analyzer and how you conduct things. So it's interesting to share ideas and thoughts with other people in the field. So feel free to leave a comment below. The short reply is yes. The longer response is that it's not always easy. I think that it's a lot harder to spot, or it's hard to spot inflection points and ventilatory thresholds when you only have VE and VO2. It's possible, and sometimes it's very clear and it manifests itself, but sometimes it doesn't. You have cases, I mean, we all know how it works once you've been looking at physiological data for a while. The textbooks look great and the inflection points are super clear, and then you take your own measurements and they look nothing like it, and your lactate curves looks nothing like what it was supposed to look like, and then your ventilatory graphs don't look like they do in textbooks. So I think the practical side is it's getting there, but it's still not always easy to spot those ventilatory thresholds. We know there's different ways of figuring out those ventilatory thresholds. I think it's Nick Jamnick's paper on finding different intensity domains and boundaries. I guess thresholds is the right word. He details different methods to find ventilatory threshold 1, and there's, for example, VE over VO2 in a graph, and that will show an inflection point. There's ventilatory equivalent, which is VE over VO2 on the graph. And there's a couple other ones that do require CO2, which we do not possess currently with the VO2 master. I know they're working on it, but it's complicated to pack a CO2 sensor in such a compact unit, at least apparently. They know more than me, so I trust that they're doing the best they can to make it work. So yeah, there's different methods to find those ventilatory thresholds, and the same thing for ventilatory threshold 2. You can do it with just VE and VO2, but it's not always super easy. So what I tend to do is I use the VO2 master on all my testing, and then what I do is I just cross-reference all the different thresholds that I can see, right? So I'll look at the lactate threshold. I will look at the ventilatory thresholds. I will look at the muscle oximetry thresholds or breakpoints, if they do appear, which they usually do, and they usually coincide nicely with the other thresholds as well. Obviously, keeping in mind that we're not measuring the same exact thing at the same exact level, right? If you're looking at lactate, it's at a certain level. If you're looking at ventilation and VO2, it's at a different level. If you're looking at the MOXY or just NIRS signal, it's a local measurement, peripheral measurement. So that's yet another type of measurement. But I think there is value in cross-referencing those different measurements so that you can increase the likelihood that your interpretation is correct. It's probably not the most scientifically accepted method. As in, if I spoke to someone who works in a lab, they would probably tell me, yeah, that's not how we do it. And I'm totally fine with that. But I also think that when you're in the field and you're not in a lab and you cannot control the environment as well as you might be able to in a lab, and you still want to extract actionable data, well, seeing those inflection points mirror each other at different levels of the organism, to me at least, lets me think that we do have a solid interpretation of where those inflection points are, which are going to help us determine our intensity domains and in turn our training zones, and manage and distribute the intensity for the athlete as optimally and individually as possible given their current physiological profile. So to me, that's kind of how I function. I don't only look at the VO2 and the VE to find the threshold. I try to use as many measurements as I can, as I have, in order to triangulate and try to get the best interpretation possible. And again, VO2 master and the ventilatory thresholds are one piece of this puzzle, but it's not the only one. If I had to only rely on one measurement, it's hard to pick because each one has their strengths and their weaknesses. At this point, I quite like lactate, despite all its flaws and the fact that so many things can influence it. I mean, it's the same with breathing. You can, if someone has a very high CO2 tolerance and you don't have a CO2 measurement, they're going to be able to influence where their ventilatory threshold appears, and that's not necessarily going to mirror what's going on at the metabolic level. And no, those two things are not exactly the same thing, and even in a perfect setting, they might not overlap exactly, but still, they're supposed to manifest themselves as a result of the same internal phenomena. And so to me, they have to be fairly close. If they're miles apart, then there's an issue in the measurement or an issue with the measure that we decided to use or the method we decided to use in order to get the measurement. So that was the long answer. So yeah, you can definitely look at ventilatory threshold with a VO2 master, only having VE and VO2, and looking at VE over VO2 or ventilatory equivalent over VO2 in a graph form, and looking for those inflection points for VT1 and VT2 respectively. You could definitely do that, but it's not always super easy to see. So I like to add some other measurements in there for the work that I do. Again, happy to hear your thoughts on the matter. So leave me a comment below. Leave a like if you appreciate the content in English. I'm trying to push more videos in English. So if you want to support me in that, put a comment in there and remind me to do more English videos, which I'll again try to do. With that, I hope you have a great day, and I'll definitely see you in the next video. Take care.